Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are
I'm just
you?
this setup. Like I got my computer here. I got the phone here. I'm looking at it live. I got my iPad. I was like, I need to take a photo, like to capture this moment. Like
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
in this kind of like messy room. I am like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Love it.
Awesome. Smile.
How you doing?
Okay. I got to turn that off. Yeah,
You got to
I'm
turn. You're
sorry.
like, I got to turn on. You were listening to like us on the iPhone.
On YouTube. Just
Hi
having fun. Just
everyone.
having fun.
Welcome to our first Just Getting Better podcast live. We are streaming
Yes.
on various channels: YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's like all the things. We're
Yes.
living in the future, Michelle, like the Jetsons.
Oh, nice. What was the house cleaner's name? The robot lady? I don't
I
know.
just remember them talking through the screen, and they were like, and I'm like, we're living in that time. We're literally talking through the screen, so it's
It's
always a
so
good thing.
crazy, isn't it? It's so crazy.
Always
It's
so
so
crazy.
2020. Look at us being so 2020.
Yeah, Denise, our guest says Rosie. So Rosie was the computer with the
Rosie, that's
screen.
right. That's right.
Rosie,
That's
right?
exactly who it was.
Well,
Yes,
that kind
yes.
of works. I am drinking a rose.
You're drinking a rosé. I am not, but
But you're drinking sparkling.
I am. Yes,
Bubbles,
fabulous sparkling. Excellent.
bubbles bring the party. Who are you? What
Bubbles.
wine are you drinking?
I am drinking a Ferrari Trento. So we're on a F1 hiatus, and it's summer and it's super hot, and I'm ready for F1 and I'm ready for fall. So I'm channeling November and Las Vegas, baby.
Okay, I am drinking Domaine Corneros, the
Yeah.
rosé, which is the Cuvée de la Pompadour. I am
Yes.
drinking that one out of California. Um,
They were one of our launch party sponsors.
our launch party sponsors, and as in my Snoop post Olympic voice, wee wee. Every time I watched him on the Olympics, he go wee wee. I just smiled, like it was the joy for me of just watching that. So
Yeah,
him
he's
there. So yeah. So
great.
how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Crazy
All right.
time. I was telling Jasmine, who you were talking about, that my husband this afternoon I came home from a meeting and he has 102-degree fever and he has COVID. So COVID's still out in the world, people.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. It's still, I tell people if you can protect yourself, whichever way that may work for you. But yeah, it's still a lot of things going around. But it's summer. It's still
Yeah.
summer. I hope somebody is on a boat, on a beach, on doing all the fun things that they're doing. So
Yeah.
we're here. This is our live. We kind of like, if you listen to our last episode of the podcast, which we are the co-hosts of a podcast called Just Getting Better, and our last episode is WTF. We understand what that means. So basically, it's taking Michelle's mug. It is taking the WTF and putting it on a live that is, for, talking for a few things that are going on. If anybody is, paying attention to a lot of things, there are a lot of things going on.
Too many
And
things.
that's too many things. And we are excited to bring back not only one of our guests from season 1, thank you. We're bringing her back to talk about, just for a little bit. If you haven't bought her book right now, like, go Indivisible by Denise Hamilton. You guys, if you haven't listened to after this, go listen to that podcast episode. So good, so many gems. Like, it, one of those things when I was re-listening to it, I was like, oh my goodness. Indivisible by Denise Hamilton. Just the things she said where, she's teaching her daughter what she is not doing, what she is not saying, what it is. Hey, Monique, how you doing? Yeah, it's one of those things to me. It's one of those books that you will read it, and then when you read something, hear something, you actually go back because you've marked that book up so much that you are just like,
I have
hey,
carried it. This book is now imprinted and it's become part of my internal dialogue.
Yeah, and I think as we enter this season, it's less than 100 days, as we know, to November elections, and this is one of those books you need in your repertoire. Critical thinking makes you really think, make you unlearn some things that you thought you learned before, and it's really, really good. So without that, I want come on, Denise, come on in. and we're just gonna kind of, talk to see also how she's doing. Just that great question.
Is
First of all,
Hi,
how are you
ladies.
doing? How
Yeah.
are you doing?
I am so good. Gen X has brought the joy back to America. I am warm and fuzzy. I'm walking around like a cup of hot chocolate. I am fine.
Ooh.
That
So good.
analogy, a cup of hot chocolate. Wow.
In my soul, in my spirit.
It's really funny because as a Gen Xer, and I have friends of all the demographics, right? One thing I know about us is we're gonna come through in the clutch. And it reminds me, I'm like, Gen X is like Steve Curry. We're Steve Curry. Like at one point, we're not sleeping, but we are literally making you rethink. And it's interesting. I'm relating your joy. Recently, I was in Oregon. Michelle and I are big Oregon wine drinkers, love them. And I was talking to a winemaker, and I said, I brought someone who until 3 days ago had never had a Chardonnay in her life, never had a Pinot Noir in her life at 56 years old, and then fell in love with wine. And I said, Gen X with the new wine drinkers, right? Like when you start talking about, like, also too, because everybody's like, oh, we need to get the younger people drinking. I'm like, well, we got a lot of people that actually don't do a lot of things. And so it's what that continual learning, like they're teaching you, always be a student, like yoga, right? Always, when the beginner's mind, as we always will learn in our training, is like, how do we approach everything with that beginner's mind? How do we use those tools? How do we use that critical thinking I talked about? Instead of just like, oh, well, someone said this, I'm like, cite your sources. Or as my mom would say for church, book, chapter, and verse.
There you go.
We want it all, right? And that's a lot of things in your book. In Indivisible, you have us think like, hey, we have to unlearn some things.
Yeah.
And so for the audience who haven't listened to the podcast yet, you haven't listened, you haven't subscribed, you haven't rated, but you're going to do all those things afterwards.
Right now.
Right now. Well, no, we want them to listen to us. We got to get them.
Listen to us, and then afterwards, buy the book and listen to the podcast.
We know Gen X can, I don't like the word multitask, but on this one, you can multitask. You can buy and follow at the same time. So tell us about Indivisible.
It's my love story to America. It's an owner's manual, right?
Oh.
I believe that we have the capacity to do incredible, amazing things. We've done it. We've done it in the past. We can do it again. We just have to be reminded that we are all inextricably linked to each other. It's silly for us to be sitting in the same boat. I'm at one end, you're at the other end, and I'm laughing at you because you have a hole in your end of the boat. We are all going to sink or we are going to survive together. That's it. And I just wanted to remind us of that and kind of lay out the ways that we get in our own way. Like, what's the trouble? What's the problem? What's the challenge? And give people practical tools to actually operate and work together. The best metaphor for being indivisible is the human body. The heart and the lungs do not argue which one is more important. They are both important, right? And I think we have to embody that. Understanding that it's not about size, it's not about position, it's not about north, south, DR. It really isn't about those things. It's about what kind of country we want to live in, what we want for ourselves and for our family and for our friends, and how do we best get there, right?
How do we best get there? Because since we all spoke several months ago, and in the past month, the shit has hit the fan, and then comes off and then goes back on and then comes off and then goes, I mean, it is like you said, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
There's so much manufactured outrage. There's so much, division. And yet, like you said, we're all in this together.
We literally live together. We live together. How can we be at odds this way? It's ridiculous to try to reduce the whole world to two sides. There are no sides. I just want to feed hungry children. Y'all, I don't want children to be hungry at school. Who agrees with me? Can we all agree on that? Can we find some things that we just all agree? I don't want the bridges to fall down. I want, there's some things we all want. Can we just make sure we are doing the work of respecting each other and protecting what makes us great? And we have to redefine that because some people have gotten confused, but I think they're about to get a reminder. They're getting a reminder right now about what it means to be appropriate.
It's interesting too, because that's I was saying my friend Monique, one thing I love about her is like she's an engineer by trade and a lawyer, but she is like a finance geek, right?
Come
And
on,
her
Monique. Monique is
Monique is like
life.
finance geek. Like I learned stuff more than listen, like her posts on finance and books and things like that. But the way she talks about it for women empowerment as that in that way of just learning about it and knowing about it and telling. And I'm always like, when I see something, I'm like, either going to be a great recipe, a great workout, something factual about politics, and something factual about like money and science. And I love that because in a world where I probably would not have known her without social media, right? And that thing like that, that is one of those people, like, I'm always like, what did she post today? Is very, I mean, I go to her, like, sometimes I'm like, oh, what Monique say? Because I need a recipe or something. I need somebody.
Monique, put your handle in the chat so we can
Monique, I'm telling you on Facebook, Monique be dropping knowledge and like just a wealth of information that she gives freely, right? And
we are buying what Monique is selling.
I'm buying what she's selling because she literally talks about, gifting shares to like her family when they graduate from school, right? So like when we talk about Indivisible, where you can actually give some people some shares to go to college instead of just saying here's a graduation present, right?
That's
like
right.
It's the way of thinking like, hey, we can do this and travel and all the the interesting things. But as you do your work, I mean, because your work is rooted in a lot of challenges that are happening for people right now, in a lot of misnomers, lack of education. So how do you dispel that with people? Because I know like sometimes you gotta like, you might not put it up publicly, but I know you probably shut the door and like, today was a day.
I mean, we used to have a general principle that we would be planting trees that we would never sit under, that the next generation would sit under. And we've lost that. Now we're plucking up the trees somebody else planted. It is just extraction. It is just unbridled greed in such a way that, if we all take the eggs that the golden goose is laying and nobody ever feeds the goose, you will have no more eggs, right? Like that. And that's kind of where we are right now, where it's just me, take. And there's no, it's a word that we use kind of weirdly today, but patriotism, right? Like, do you sweep around your stoop? Do you care about how you're interacting with the people in your universe, whether immediate or on the broader scale, right? And I think this idea of being grateful for the gifts that you've been given and extending that kindness to other people. I mean, I told you, I think on our conversation, I don't know if we talked about the fact that I have a book deal because Adam Grant said, hey, you're amazing. I really like your work. Let me introduce you. What did that cost him? Right? It didn't cost him anything, but it changed my life. And now I'm sitting on this podcast with y'all talking about this book that I was able to bring into the world. Like, what introductions are you making? What connections are you making? What help are you offering? Do you know what's going on in the public elementary school down the street from your house? Are you paying attention to what's happening in your local government? It can be so easy to be so insular. What's happening with my kids and my family and my parents? And I want you to be caring and sensitive to your immediate family. But what about the broader family? Can you step out just a little bit to care about somebody beyond yourself? Not just because you're trying to be kind, but because it serves you, it helps you, it feeds you, it reminds you to be grateful instead of complaining all the time, right? When you get to see how fortunate and blessed you really are. And we've lost that. So we keep talking about how America has a loneliness problem, how America has a spirituality problem, how America is not saving, is overweight, is all of these problems that I think stem from disconnection. So I guess I want to remind people that you need to go outside and touch some grass and say hi to somebody that you didn't know before. Like this, accumulation of things. You do not need another pair of jeans. Stop. You're in Target right now. You might be listening. You have 17 pairs of jeans. You do not need one more. But those children going back to school, maybe somebody needs some jeans. Can you reach out to somebody? Can you see if there's a way you can be of service to someone beyond yourself? That's how you put your life in perspective. You want to get rid of anxiety? You want to get of loneliness? Put your life in perspective and put it in juxtaposition to the needs and the experiences of other people. Join a community.
Amen. Golly. I remember last time we were like, she's preaching. She's doing it again.
I would also add with that too, one of the things that I also think opens people up is travel.
Yes.
I think traveling, if you can, and I understand there's a lot of reasons and challenges people can't. I am very aware of that. But travel has taught me so much about myself. It taught me so much about others. It taught me about patience. And, I tell people all the time, when you travel, you have to pack your patience. No one is trying to not get you to your destination. No one is really not trying. And, and I say this as a person who's traveled for a long time, that storm just came. They're trying to get you home, but I also need you to be safe. So there's also the factor that everyone's trying to get home. Everyone's trying to get to wherever they need to be. And travel to me is like when I was like reading the book, and it teaches you a lot of empathy. Yeah. Like you go other places, right? And you also see other cultures.
That's learning about so important. Yeah.
Other cultures and how they operate is one of the best gifts you can get, right? It's like there are not a lot of things open on Sundays in a lot of places, right? There is that day, right? It's like, I love the meme that's going around about, you sending out of office for an American. It's like, okay, I just had surgery, but I'll be on the call tomorrow. And you send it to a European. They were like, I'm on vacation. I'll see you in September. Yep. It's kind of like, we're so used to like going,
get somebody else to do it. Get somebody else to do it.
No, God, no kidding. But it also, one of the things that I saw this statistic, and I think that this impacts us also, is that like 10% or less of Americans have passports.
I thought it was like 15 now.
Is it up to 15? And I understand, like you said, some people can't, and of course. Yeah. But when we don't go out into the world and not only experience the challenges of moving through the world, but also experiencing other cultures, I think there's a sense of indivisibility in seeing how other people live, good and bad. It's not like we're better or worse, or it's not, it's just that people just get along. They just systemically move through the world like that.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. You can be a tourist in your own city. Yes. One of the things I have a group of young, brilliant high school students that we mentor that are getting ready to head off to Ivy League schools, amazing schools, right? And one of the things I conduct a meeting with the parents, and I say, take them to the Rich store, take them to the gallery, the art gallery opening, take them to the wine store, take them to all these places. They can't buy wine, they're underage, but educate them about these other things. Don't just drop them in the grease. And sometimes the parents are scared to go because they've never been, right? So you can be a tourist in your own city, going to a different part. Hey, why do y'all call it arepas? We call it beef patties in my culture. Like, in compare and contrast, it's about being interested in people, being curious, yourself, being curious, right? Why do people do things differently? I love to go to religious services of faiths that I'm not a part of. Why do y'all do that? Oh, that's really beautiful how they do that. Oh, I love that ceremony, right? Just being open and having a desire and a thirst for learning about people and how people can be different. Instead of, if you look at your calendar and everything is people that look like you and think like you and go to the same church as you and live in the same neighborhood as you, you might want to reevaluate that. And that's not about a passport. That's about an appetite for sameness, And so can you burst out of that and just be curious about other people?
Yeah, man. Go ahead.
No,
Julie.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about something and I just lost my train of thought. So please.
It's one of those things. And my mother was a teacher. I come from a family of educators, and I remember going, "Oh, I'm never going to be a teacher. Oh my God!" And when I started in wine, she was like, "What do you think you're doing now?" Right? It was kind of like looking at it in a different way.
Yeah.
And as like I love to read and get involved in books, and even like listening, I listen to a lot of books, like audio books, right, nonfiction and memoirs, and like and it's the saying that she used to say: "People see your glory, they don't see your story." And you learn so much by communicating with other people, because that's why I love the little library houses they have in neighborhoods, because I love to stop by, even if I'm like dropping off a book, but I'm very curious of what what books people are putting in there. Like, right,
Yes,
just to see like,
yes.
oh, this person was reading this. It's kind of like when you go to certain hotels and people have left books in the library, and you could go in and see like, oh man, these are random books that I probably never heard of, never would have picked up, right? It's that curiosity. And I feel like there's so much sameness happening right now, like everything. So people want it so cookie cutter. They want it
Yes.
to be so same. They want it to
I
be
call
easy.
I call it the Canva of it all. Like, we are trying to put everything in a template. 5 steps to do this, 7 steps to do that. I guarantee you there are more than 7 steps. I guarantee it, right? But we are reducing everything to a Canva template. And no shade to Canva. It's a wonderful tool. But when you open up social media, everything looks the same, sounds the same. All the quotes are regurgitated. It's all the same pictures. The difference between us and AI regurgitates other people's thoughts. Human beings create. We are innovators. We develop, right? We make things out of nothing. And we can't lose sight of that. And if you fall into this templatization of everything, you miss out. You'll lose something. So sometimes it's okay to struggle through something and not have it just right. We've lost our patience with mediocre. Mediocre is a healthy step towards great. It is a healthy, appropriate step towards great. We want to jump from nothing, from horrible to incredible. And that journey is that's the story, right? That's where the glory is, right? That's where you figure out what works for you, right? I can read everybody else's work, but I gotta know what works for me. And I only get that if I'm willing to go through the maturation process and the development process. So I get it. Everybody wants a shortcut. Don't think that shortcut is free.
No.
Well, man plans and God laughs.
Yeah.
That's what my dad used to say all the time. Man plans and God laughs. And the older when you're young, you're like, what does that mean? And then as you get older, you're like, oh, okay. I know exactly. Got it. Yeah.
One of the things that that we talked about with you back a few months ago in your book that it's really just resonated inside of me, and I think about it a lot. And it's about centering ourselves in stories, and how we seek to understand through how it applies to us, and how we center ourselves in, I need to understand you in order to be okay with you, or in order to validate you, or in order to whatever. So when we think about women and where we are, I don't even know what date it is, August something.
August 13th.
13th. Okay.
I had to look at the calendar. I didn't know what it was either. So,
and we're in the middle, and we're just coming off the end of a wonderful Olympics where 65% of the US medals were won by women. And, but there was a lot of ups and downs in not in the Olympics. It looked amazing, but some of the stuff happening outside of that. And then as we head into even deeper into an election cycle that is showing itself to be, very contentious. How do women show up for each other indivisibly without centering ourselves? And in particular, how do white women do that when we have such a history? I think about not only the failures of 2016, but also the failures of the Women's March. And not to say that the march was a failure. It was not at all a failure, but there were issues. And so how do women in general and white women specifically show up indivisibly without centering ourselves in the story to be partners with Black women and brown women in community and move, hopefully, our country forward? Sorry, that's a long question.
I love it. And I I have good news.
Yes,
As
please.
an answer to this question, it's been happening.
Yes.
I've been seeing it. I even use as an example, just recently, Donald Trump spoke at the NABJ conference. He was interviewed and he said, oh, Kamala used to be Indian and now she's turned Black. And, you know, I'm a watcher of people. I study people. I watch their reactions. I watch their responses. And I was ready for Black people to say, that's ridiculous. You can be biracial. Da, da, da. That's not who I saw. I saw white women at the front of the line saying, absolutely not. Nope, you're not doing that. She's biracial. She's always been Indian. She's always been Black. Let's move on. That's who I saw. Comment after comment after comment at discussions. People, because, you know, I can't go into every family, but you can go into yours, right? And you can stop misinformation. You can stop disinformation. You can point out when somebody is being dishonest or unkind. You can alliterate when you see people making choices that are not just, you know, selfish or self-supporting, but are just mean and unkind to other people and denigrating whole groups of people. And that's what I've been seeing. It actually, there have been times throughout this process that literally it's brought tears to my eyes because that's what we needed. That's what we've been needing all this time. I don't know about you, honey, Black women are tired.
Wait.
Exhausted.
Wait. I told Michelle, and let me just say this about Michelle, because the reason I'm doing a podcast with her, because Michelle is one of those white women, like, not on my watch. Right. Like, that's all she, you know, I'm like, okay, well, I am saying less, and I am going to let you go. Because Michelle is like the kind just, hey, have you had some water? Are you okay? Are you rested? I was feeling something the last time we talked, but she's also taking that story to her community. So it's not just like she's doing it for me. She's doing it for other people. Like, oh, no. I need you to read this article. Like, you know, citing your sources. And as journalists, that's where we also come from. Right. Is she's doing the work and has been doing it, in my opinion, a very long time, because I've been knowing her for years, where a lot of people are just like now really kind of really knowing her the way we see her. I see her as a friend and a colleague. But yeah, it's kind of like, you know, Kamala has, you know, and like me, Black women are tired. We have our Black jobs and we're tired. And I told Michelle that. I said, I'm gonna let y'all have this one.
She did.
I did. I said, I am gonna do what I've been doing. Because we've been doing the work. We haven't stopped. We've been coordinating and motivating and everything we've been doing, everything we've been standing for. So I'm gonna let y'all take this one. I know where my community is and what the community I have. And she was like, I got you. See, when someone says that and you don't have to keep trying to defend and trying to say, she got it.
And I love that.
We're running the 100-meter relay together. We're into that baton and going for gold.
and that's what we need, right? That's what we've always needed. We just want us to be in alignment and to be, you know, it's like a choir. When a choir holds a really long note, no one person is holding the note the whole time. I drop out so you can take a breath. You drop out, then I can take a breath. Like, that's how it works. And we need to all put our hands behind the plow. And I think we've come to a space where there was an expectation that, of course, we're going to speak up. Of course, we're going to, you know, stand and fight and battle and whatever. And it has been, in my opinion, a beautiful season of seeing people step up. All people step up and say, absolutely not. No, you're not doing that. No, we don't approve of that. I don't like the way he said that. I don't appreciate what he did. Even I've got great friends that are Republicans and they're like, listen, I don't like that. And I don't want him to do it anymore. And I wrote a note to his campaign telling him that. What? Like, that is what we've been needing, because all of this happens when we rely on a tiny little group to scream out.
Yeah. And also we also have to talk about, like, there have been some men who have stepped up, and like the men I just got to give a shout out to like these men, because sometimes they don't get the recognition that they and I'm just saying the men who have stood out. I mean, have come to like, we're doing this, we're raising funds, we got you. And even just sometimes I receive that message like, You okay? How you doing today?
Yeah.
From people that I never would have thought. I'm looking at the message like, ooh, oh, okay, something. And you can see, and I've had messages going, I can't raise my daughter like this. And you hear a man say it. And when a woman says it, kind of innate, right? That maternal thing. But when you see the guys who are just like, yeah, not on my watch, not with my daughters, not with my sons.
I saw a beautiful conversation with a group of men, all races, but predominantly white men, redefining what's locker room talk. They were apologizing that they let that slide. And I was like, what? Are we in the upside down?
Awesome. Yeah.
What's happening now, right? Because that's the thing. That's really what all of this is about. All of this is a renegotiation.
Yeah.
Every time you have a power shift, a difference in how you're going to do anything, it's all about negotiation and who has the power, who's sitting at the table, who gets to decide, right? If I had gone into a bank in 1953 and said, I have a business idea, I would like a checking account, and can you give me a business loan? They would have laughed me out of there and, maybe call my husband to come get me, right? And now they're like, Denise, tell me about your idea, what you got in mind. Yeah, like, how much do you need, right? It's about power. The act isn't any different. The ideas aren't any different. It's about the power to execute and make those changes. And what we're seeing is we're all at the table. We're all at the table making these renegotiations, looking at a different way and imagining a new possibility of how we can be together. And I call that indivisible. But, even if people don't have that language, they're moving like that. When you have 20,000, 30,000 people, because they have to turn people away that want to sit for hours to wait and hear somebody speak, you have a movement, right?
Yeah.
You have a movement of people saying, I choose joy. I choose an optimistic view of my future, right? And we can only do that if we do it together. And so I'm thrilled. We are together, honey. I've seen
it's
together.
Like Monique just reminded 40,000 Black men got on a call for Kamala. Like, very proud that my husband was also one of those people. And then I know people I used to work with were on the white dudes for Kamala.
My husband was on the white dudes.
Yeah, and they were literally like texting me, and I'm talking people I hadn't heard from in years. No, like haven't worked at a law firm in years, and I'm like, wait a minute, like I'm looking at the text like, oh, okay, kind of, like, wow, okay. I'm like, thank you, thank you. Like, yeah. And I think there is this, we look to other places and we, Michelle and I follow France a lot because we love it as a place to visit. And you think what they did with their elections in a week, like how they turned it around and just, people like watching those interviews and everything and saying, hey, how do we want to see? So when you say this indivisible, how do we want that to actually be, like you said, for the next generation that can that have that tree aspect, that we're not pulling that tree up, that tree is also there for them.
100%.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask, and this is a personal question, and I always ask authors this. So what's the next book? Because there's always the next book. If you wrote it, I got to talk about it. Like, oh, wait a minute. Monique said there's a Republican for Kamala movement too. Twice.
There
is. It's legit too. There's Yes.
So, your first book, like we got to talk Adam Grant. I'm a huge Adam Grant fan.
Me too. And I didn't know what you said about him helping you. And as I was reading your book, I kept thinking about Rethink, his book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's you're like the female.
Yes. And so. What should people be thinking? Like, first, I want to know about the second book. And then also, what should people be doing, thinking right now? Any call to action, strategies as we look ahead? Because we know you're inspired by Harriet Tubman.
Yes.
Harry is the one. So as people take that, just say that Harriet Tubman energy, right? What's some strategies people can take away? Like thinking about any call to action that people can do, because I know there is someone probably listening who feels like, what can I do? Is just me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's me, I'm in my little job, or I'm busy with my kids, or I'm busy with a lot of things going on. People might be like me, you're full-time caregiving and working. A lot of things are happening all at once. What about people like, who really also too, they don't know where to start?
So I think that the biggest lie that we have been given is that we are helpless and hopeless.
Mm.
It's just not true. We are among the most powerful people on planet Earth. And that's just the truth. We are very fortunate to live in the United States of America. And it's almost disrespect to people who have done so much more with so much less, that we sit around and say, I just can't figure it out. I don't know. I just can't. You do know. What you do is you start. You look around you. I don't need you to be an expert in reparations. I don't need you to go negotiate at The Hague. What I need you to do is, it's back to school down the street from your house. Does the teacher need some crayons? Does she need some glue? Like, I think that sometimes we get into this idea, and we've been programmed this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are 25 and you don't have a multi-billion-dollar unicorn startup, I mean, what are you even doing with your life? Right? So we have this thing that we keep doing, and it's nonsense. We all have the capacity to do something to help the neighbor down the street, to tap in where something is needed. This is something I suggest, even if you're not a member of a church, why don't you reach out to a local church in your neighborhood and just put a call out? Hey, if you ever come across a case, a single mom that needs some bunk beds, a family of 6 kids and they need help with back to school supplies, like, call me. Just think about the power of that. Think if you got you and 30 friends, just 30 of you, 30 people, and you adopted your neighborhood school.
Wow.
Just think about what you could do, from getting them new basketballs. Their basketballs are terrible. The curtains in it's all terrible. It's terrible how we do it. And it's like, what if you just took ownership of a place that you may not even have kids? Your kids may go to another school, a fancy school. Okay. Just care about the place that you live in, and just start figuring out wherever that may be. Like, do you take your kids to a nursing home to sit and read? Just sit and talk to people. Maybe let's go in and say, hey, can you point me to somebody that nobody ever visits? And just go sit and talk to them for 15 minutes.
Wow.
That's the thing. We act like this stuff is hard. It's not. What's hard is putting ourselves, self-subordinating to getting out of our own obsession with our own comfort and our own pleasure and our own appetites, and just having a heart to care and love the people that are around you. I'm telling you, these conversations that we have in this country, these debates, I think about 30% of them would evaporate tomorrow if people actually interfaced with the people that they have so many opinions about, right? Like, you need to talk to some hungry people before you decide if you're going to cut food stamps, right? You need to understand what's happening in local schools before you sabotage and refuse to pay teachers. Like, I just think we would move differently if we had an invested interest in one another. Now, your second question about the second book, you sound like one of those people that at the wedding says, when are y'all gonna have a baby?
Okay. I know it sounded so, because as a person who I'm currently writing my memoirs. And and the funny thing is, I can't write in a room. I can only write them on a plane, because I don't like to fly, so it's a distraction to write.
I have to tell you, I do my best writing and thinking on a plane. And you know what I think that means? We are overstimulated.
I know I'm overstimulated.
Something about being someplace that nothing can get to you.
You know what I'm like? That Wi-Fi never works. I'm just like, and no one is talking. No one can get to me.
Silent retreats too.
I've done one. I've done a 10-day Vipassana retreat. So I understand, like, I am in, so like, I'm so like, I know, but the book was so affirming for both of us. It just was the natural, like, it was one of those, when I ended, I'm like, when is the second book? When was this copy written? Like, what day this book came out? Because it made me think, like, is she doing something, writing? Because it's those kind of, is that like the Adam Grant rethink? You can't help but have
think again. Yes.
Think again. Think again. Can we have that? It's kind of like I'm waiting on James Clear with another Atomic Habits too. Right? It's like I keep going back, but I'm like, James, like, you know what I mean? It's the same. It's like, I don't want to force it because he's so good at things, but it's
Yeah. Well, yes, it's a book that, I mean, like I said, I mean, I continue to carry it with me in my head, in my heart. It has reshaped the way that I think about things. It's the centering, that was a big one. Centering yourself in a story. That's a big one.
Yeah, we all want to be the star of the
Mhm.
story, right? And if we can just step back, and sometimes you are just, you're the banana. You are nurse number 3.
Yeah.
You are not the star of the story. You just have some supporting cast role, right? You are the third wise man. That's what you are.
Yeah.
And if we can do that and not center ourselves, like, just think of the gift that is. It's just such an incredible gift to the people around you to just step back sometimes and let somebody else just have their moment, their story, their experience. And they don't have to run it through the filter of you.
Yeah.
You don't have to understand me like Donald Trump doesn't have to understand what it means to be biracial for it to be a real thing. Like, that's not what's required. Exactly. Your acceptance of a concept is not what is required for it to be true. And if you can humble yourself to that, then you can be in real relationship with people. If you're not a competition, you're a student. Who doesn't want to be around students? I always want to be around students. Yeah. So yes, am I going to write another book? You have planted a seed. I am thinking about writing another book. This is a lot. This is a whole lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Because I wanted to know,
promoting this book.
Yes, I know, but like, how can people support you? Where can people follow you?
Find you?
Yes.
Okay, so I am at Official DHAM in all of the places.
You guys.
And I'm Gen Xer. I grew up in hip hop, so it's Official DHAM.
There you go.
Love is that how you made? Wait. Is that how you made your
yes.
social handle?
My daughter Nancy.
I love
that. My best friend, roommate from college. He's T Ferg and I'm DHAM. It's been like that since we were kids.
That's awesome.
I'm Official DHAM.
That's awesome.
And also, I have a boring name, Denise Hamilton. So like there's no way I was ever going to get that. But
I like it.
But yeah, that's where you find me, all the places. If you want me to come in and speak, denisehamilton.co is where you can find me. And then Indivisible now to keep up with what's going on with the book. We are also getting ready to launch our Good Givers project where this is kind of cool. My husband and I both grew up poor, and we always hated the way it seemed like parents were made to feel during a toy drive. So we decided to flip the model. So we go out, shop, buy a bunch of toys, and good toys, not corny toys that nobody wants, not the cheap dollar store toys. Don't do that. Buy really, really nice toys. And then we have the parents come in and they shop for their child.
Nice.
And it is
so empowering.
Best because they know their child better than I could ever know. So instead of giving the girls a Barbie doll and the boys a truck, we have magnifying glasses and telescopes and art kits and sports equipment. And because just because they're poor doesn't mean they don't have a diversity of interests, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we're launching that, and we're encouraging people to host Good Givers events all over the country. So if they go to indivisiblenow.com, there's information about that.
Good Givers on there? Okay.
Good Givers is on there. And it's in the book as well, where I explain the concept. But if you want help doing it, we're going to have a national call later this year to kind of help people pull it off where they are. And people keep asking me, why don't you do a 501c3 and make a big thing? And no. The whole idea is that you do it. You do it. You go buy the toys and you see the parents' faces and you understand that poor people love their kids just as much as you do, just as much. So the whole point is not me doing it for the whole country. It's you doing it where you live. So if you're interested in that, tap in.
Thank you. Empowerment.
Thank you so much, Denise. And this has been amazing. Yes. And we want to thank everyone for joining. We'll be back next week with one of our season one guests, Dr. Camellia Smith out of, Dallas, who is she's going to be my doctor. She doesn't really know it yet, but she's going to be my doctor.
Incredible. With women's health and menopause and sexuality.
And the whole women's health. Not just the, checking all the bits and also the mind as well.
But
mental health.
To the toes.
Not the bits. Not the bits.
All the bits. I'm trying to be PC, Denise. I'm trying to be good.